Please be seated. Well, welcome. It is such a good thing for us to be able to be here on this first Sunday of Advent. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year.
Oh, that caught him a little bit off guard, I think. We'll do it again. So, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
There you go. So this opportunity for us to recognize that for us in the church calendar, this is the beginning of the new year. And that stands in contrast to the secular calendars that we all have that start with January 1 and then go on through December 31st. So if you were to pick out your smartphone like mine and look at your calendar, you know, that's how it goes, right? It's kind of the secular calendar. And so that's based on the movements of the earth in relationship to the sun and the moon and the seasons and the growing seasons and all of those things that happen. And it seems very natural, although I have to, it still is confusing how we got our current calendar and how it works. So for instance, am I the only one? So when you pull out your checkbook or someplace and you're going to write the date for something and you're writing it in numbers and you come to the month of October, do you have to catch yourself and not say that it's the 8th month, but it's the 10th month? Am I the only one who struggles with that? Are there other people? So, am I? All right. So you know, an octopus has how many legs, right? 8, right? Octo, 8. So it should be the 8th month is October, right? But it's the 10th month. So it just shows how strange things are, and we just kind of take them for granted. But they're sillier than we think. So this whole thing about the measurement of time and the calendar and how we measure the days, and we do it as individuals and a whole race of people that are captivated and captive in time. Captive in the movement of time. And so minutes pass, hours, days, weeks, months, and we can't escape the movement of time. And so the calendar continues to keep track of that, and it tells us that there are days that are past and that there are days that are yet to come. And there's a present moment that's fleeting. It fleets very fast. And so in a secular calendar, we're left with the observation of different dates and times, many of which are in the past, birthdays and anniversaries, things that have happened in the past, notable events that have happened in the past, all of those things. And we note them, but I don't know that we in our culture we really come to terms with the past or our history. We somehow think sometimes that we can kind of just move on and look towards the future, but the past is what has accumulated to bring us to where it is that we currently are. And so that can be either a pleasant thought or a very troubling thought for us. So the past continues to determine all of the things that we think and do, both the good and the bad. So yesterday I was working on my wife's bike, her bicycle. And she had a tire that needed to be replaced, and then I was working on the brakes, and I couldn't help but just it flashed back into my memory. Our oldest son had a bicycle, and I'm a very mechanical kind of person, not. But his bike needed some work, and so I was working on it, and so I finally gave it to him. I said, it's fixed, you're ready to go. And so he got on it, and he rode it. We were on the side of a hill. He rode it directly about 50 feet into a tree, and he broke his arm. And I ran over to him and I said, well, so why didn't you stop? And he said, the brakes didn't work. And I said, the brakes? So when I was working on Darla's bike, I wanted to make sure that they were working before I gave it to her. So the past continues to inform us. And there are some wonderful celebrations and some wonderful experiences that we've had in the past. But there are lots of things that are not always very pleasant that are in the past. Things that have happened to us. Things that we've done. Things that we do anything to be able to call back, but we can't. Relationships that have failed. Aspirations that have crashed and burned. And so it's no wonder oftentimes that we talk about trying to hide from the past or hoping that the past won't catch up with us. But it's there. Whether we think about it or not, admit it or not, it's there. And it haunts us. And so then we look towards the future. And I don't know, sorry, are you optimistic about the future? It's a good question, you know. So there are lots of opportunities, and we like to be able to think very positively about the future. And yet, you know, we look at the political tensions that are here in this country and in others, the surgence of countries like China and Russia that don't seem to have the same kinds of ideals that we do about human rights and what a fair world looks like, and we look at the challenges of technology and the environment and the challenges with trying to keep the world a livable place, and we look at even just this weekend a new variation of the virus that threatens us. The future. Maybe it's for good reason that in Dickens' A Christmas Carol, it is the ghost of Christmas future that is the most terrifying. This ghoul-like creature that takes Scrooge to be confronted with his ultimate end. The past haunts us, but the future terrifies us. And we'll do anything to eliminate the terror and find our efforts futile. And so then that brings us to the present. The present, this very fleeting, infinitesimally short time so if I say the word present, by the time those sound waves get to your ear, it's already the past. Isn't that crazy? This very slim razor's edge that is the present that fleets on by us, and we can never seem to capture it. And with the realities of our past and the threat of the future, the present can feel like a burden in which we have to somehow come to terms with what seems an insurmountable moral challenge. And so we distract ourselves. We go shopping. We drink too much. We entertain ourselves. Time. It's an amazing thing, isn't it? Time. St. Augustine said that, that time, he knew what it was until somebody asked him, and then he didn't know what it was at all. And so if you feel a little heavy now, there's probably good reason for that. Because we're talking about secular time and our own human history. And then we come to this season of Advent and what we call the church calendar. So the church calendar, we oftentimes think of as just kind of an ancillary thing. The real calendar is the one that goes from January 1st to December 31st, right? But that's a very human calendar that leaves us in the quandary that we've just described. But the church calendar comes to us as a gift, as a story that tells us that there is good news in the redemption of time. In this little book, there's pauses for Advent, which we're encouraging you. So all of our life groups are using it. Other small groups are using it. Individuals are using it, and I've begun to get some reflections of people who have really found it helpful. In this book, he talks about our sleepwalking through our life. He says how easily we succumb to sleepwalking. We go from experience to experience, encounter to encounter, event to event on autopilot, showing little awareness that Jesus is present and active in our midst. Consequently, we confine our life of faith to certain religious moments, such as going to church, saying our prayers, or offering grace before a meal, and our everyday existence gets divorced from our spiritual life. Sleepwalking endangers our spiritual health. Advent, he says, is a time to wake up from the drowsiness, the sleepiness, the burden of coming to terms with our human history. And so this amazing truth, and it's not a wonder really that we have a hard time absorbing it. This fact that in the church calendar, or in this story of our salvation, we celebrate the fact that one who is eternal, one who is outside of time, the one who created time, but who resides outside of time and in and through time, comes and becomes resident in time. How is that possible? That what is eternal enters into what is temporal in a particular day and place. How is that possible? And how is it possible for us even to understand it? It's almost like trying to describe to a fish swimming in the sea what it's like to walk on the land and breathe air. It's so different, so radically apart. And yet, it's at the core of what it is that gives us hope for the future. That the one who is eternal has become temporal, has entered into time, has sanctified time with his grace and mercy. So when we look at the past is not just simply the accumulation of human failings. The past is the revealing of God's work. It is in the past that God chose the children of Israel and delivered them out of bondage in Egypt and brought them to the promised land. It is out of the past that God raised up prophets and prophetesses to bring God's word to the people when they were beaten down and struggling. It is in the past that a little girl was visited by an angel, and the word of God became flesh and dwelt among us in a particular place at a particular time in history. History for us is a gift. It doesn't haunt us. It reveals to us the greatness and the power of this great God of ours who does not leave us alone, but who comes and visits us with his grace and mercy and shines his glory on the human race. So if you want to be encouraged, look to the past. History is where we learn our identity and who we are, and how it is that we're equipped for the future, because the future is a bright place. As we look back at the past, we see all of the things that we've done that we're not necessarily very proud of. And yet God redeems them. Augustine, I mentioned, he was a bright guy, smart man, and he left home early and left behind his parents and his mother, who was a woman of faith, and he went to the academy and he learned the art of rhetoric, which in his day was a powerful discipline. It was learning about how to argue together, how to make a point together. They were people of tremendous power, and they trained the political leaders of their time, and he was a rising star. And he also fell in love or fell in lust with a young woman, and they had a son together, and he was riding high. And yet he's the one who wrote in his Confessions, our hearts are restless until they find their rest in thee. And so this restless heart of his led him to a place where he met the Eternal One. And so in his Confessions, he does pages and pages. He talks about this issue of time and how it's possible for eternity to enter into the human heart and change it and mold it. And then he looked back at his life, which was not a shining star of virtue by any means. And he wrote this: late have I loved you, beauty so ancient and so new. Late have I loved you. Behold, you were within, and I was without. And there I sought you, plunging unformed as I was into the fair things that you have formed and made. You were with me, and I was not with you. You called and cried aloud, and finally shattered my deafness. You flashed and blazed like lightning and routed my blindness. You cast your fragrance, and I drew breath, yet pant for you. I tasted, yet hunger and thirst. You touched me, and I was on fire for your peace. The past for us is glorious, as it is this Eternal One touches us and transforms us and changes us. And so the future looks bright. The future is a gift. The future is a calling for us. As we look at what it is that God has done, where it is that God has touched us, how it is that he's awakened us, allowed us to slough off the dead skin of apathy, to allow us to look out into the future and to see it as a bright place of calling, not because of our confidence in human accomplishments, but because in what it is that he can do in and through and around us, transforming us and filling us with his Spirit, guiding us and leading us. though the earth quake, though the earth break apart, his words will never depart, will never fail. And so the future is a calling for us to make his kingdom palpable, to see it, to taste it, to hunger for it, to yearn for it, for that day when every knee shall bow and every tongue confess that he is Lord, and every tear of ours be wiped away. And joy, such joy, as we've only just tasted a bit, becoming our daily bread. And so then the present for us is not a burden. The present isn't a weight. It isn't something to be somehow avoided or somehow past. We talk about killing time, wasting time. Time is this opportunity, the present, this opportunity, this gift for us to be able to step into the movement of the Eternal One, to be able to see how it is that he can work with us, in and through us, to bring his eternal kingdom into the hearts and lives of the people who are around us, to be able to see his glory shine in the present as a foretaste of what is still to come. So this season of Advent is such a gift for us. This opportunity for us to be able to look back at our past and not experience shame or haunting, but glory in the story of his redemption and redeeming work, and to be able to look towards the future and to be inspired, to be able to be willing not to have to just kind of drag yourself out of bed, but to be able to jump out of bed because of the glory that awaits us, and to be able to see the present as this opportunity to be able to see him move in our hearts. And so, but it takes, it's a different way of thinking. It's like being fish, swimming in the ocean, being told that there are people who are walking on two legs and breathing air. It's so very different than what we experience in this world. And yet, there is one who came and joined us and told us and invited us to come and be his. And so this Advent time, to be able to listen to this invitation to this story, to allow him to woo us, to fill us, to awaken yearning in us, that we would breathe deeply the fresh air of heaven and taste the banquet that is ours to come. Augustine again. Come, O Lord, I pray. Stir us up and call us back. Kindle us and take us to yourself. Set us ablaze and cast your sweetness over us. Let us love. Let us run. Amen.